Welcome to Daily Sports Locker Room Podcast. Familiar faces on again tonight. Mark Doran, current Wicklow coach down in St Ledger, St Sylvester's manager. Lads, we're reviewing the semi-finals. Turlough O'Brien's run a wee bit late tonight. Turlough's going to join us. He's on his way back from Semple Stadium, hard like a lion travelling down there today. But we're going to start obviously with the game that everyone's talking about, Glen and Kilmacud, and obviously sort of a rematch from last year's probably what you probably call controversial final, where people talk about this asterisk beside the final, Daniel, with the 16 men on the field at the end of the game. And obviously, you know, Glen have been waiting a long time for this opportunity. And I would say when the draw was made, and Ulster were playing Leinster, I would say probably Malachy and the boys probably had one eye on this. Would you agree?
Yeah, look, it looked like it. I thought they brought all the fire and fury in the first half. Really, you know, it was. I thought Crokes were very passive. Like I thought they tried a policy of containment nearly for the maybe 45 minutes. I'd say they didn't really squeeze kickouts hard. The passive is the only word I could describe them as, and I thought Glen just picked them off. It looked like Glen learned an awful lot more. You know, we were chatting here before about maybe the possibility of matchups with Conor Glass, with Bradley and these odds. I thought Glen were kind of clever the way they utilised Glass, especially on kickouts and stuff like that. They dropped him into the D an awful lot. He picked up an awful lot of short sort of ball and kind of set up an awful lot of attacks. And you know, we've talked about Crokes dropping off kickouts before, and you know it works against probably 99% of teams, but this Glen team are so well organised, so well coached that you just can't afford to give them a consistent platform. And I think you saw in the last 15 minutes when Crokes actually went hard after the kick out, they got some returns off it, you know, and I think Glen looked a little bit wobbly, but no, they were. I thought they were fully deserving for it. Should have won more comfortably, I thought. Ryan Dugan, I know I texted you when he went off. When Ryan Dugan went off, Paul Mannion almost immediately came into the game, and I think that was a massive turning point from there on in. And it was hard to watch, hard to kind of get a real sense of the game, but I have said Glen looked, I won't say comfortable, but they should have won. They should have won by 5 or 6 points, I think. You know.
Yeah, I was at the game, and just to say that, Daniel, I didn't think at any stage at all Glen were in any danger of losing the game. I thought conditions as well. Thought the refereeing in the second half, Mark. I thought Connor Lane, sorry, made some big calls. You know, one in particular where the I think it was Glass, Ethan Doherty, I think maybe McFall had surrounded Craig Dias, and there was no contact. They had just literally bottled him up. It was an overcarrying call, in my opinion. Now he gave a free in, and it actually led then to the goal. And I have to say now that the ball, Donny, from Shane Walsh, like was absolutely what you would call in GA terms world class. Like it was a phenomenal pass, you know, and not too many players would have been capable of seeing or even executing that pass. But how did you see that moment where it started to turn? Like, how did you see that?
Well, look, I do think, I know Daniel mentioned, I think Ryan Dugan going off was a massive blow for Glen. Plus, look, they did sit back a wee bit, and they are inclined to do maybe that. Look, you have to remember, they were 7 points up, and they maybe thought, look, well, close her up here and we'll see it out. But look, and Daniel also mentioned the kickouts. I think that Glen went in Kilmacud went in a really aggressive press, went after Glen's kickouts. The game started to turn, and I'm actually shocked. I would say Robbie Brennan, now maybe in his management team, thinking that was probably a mistake. They got around. Glen are the one club team in Ireland. They're so good at building from the back, like Conor Carville, Warnick, Dougie, and these boys. They're so good at building from the back. They get a spread of scores. So the one team in Ireland you can't give the ball to. They are the one team where you have to press the kickouts and press it hard now. And I think if Kilmacud look back, they'll probably think that was a big mistake. But look, I do believe Ryan, like Paul Mannion was very, very quiet, and then Dougie went off, and that will be a big worry for Glen, because when Dougie's not in there, they don't have the same. They're just not the same team back in there. And I do think him going to have Paul Mannion come into the game. Like, to be fair, you mentioned Shane Walsh's pass; it was excellent. But to be fair, if you think Spike Warnock had a serious game on him to keep, all right, Shane Walsh got 1-1, but the goal right at the end. But look, and Warnock went up the field, kicked the point. I thought Glen, their matchups were perfectly, but the last 20 minutes probably, and it's probably a good thing now. Glen can go into the final with plenty of learning. Whereas they had seen the game out by 6 or 7 points, there may be that wee bit of complacency. But the fact now they've went in and they could have lost it. To be fair, when you think a minute left of a draw game, now to be fair, I think it was Glen were 7 up at one time, and Kilmacud then went and kicked 1-4. And to be fair to Glen, they went up and got the next score and went in front. They always were just able to go and get the next score. But you think of it, right? And we didn't mention Jack Doherty went off after 15 minutes. Another big blow.
Just on that, Mark. Just on that, Jack Doherty. I have it down here in my notes here. Brian Sheehy, like red card material. Like it was very high challenge. It actually was dangerous. Elbow was up. What was your view on it?
Yeah, I thought at the time. Well, look, I thought at the time he's definitely going to get booked or something. But I was actually surprised there was no.
Yeah.
It was not just the free, and then I think it was just there was I actually was sitting down just not too far from Glen Duggan. It seemed to be the way it wasn't actually the way Ladd on his knee. They were worried, but it was his knee was giving him the problem. Now it was, and to be fair, Glen were going rightly at that stage, but I do think Kilmacud did give Glen I think to get him a foot up into the game by giving him the kick outs and allowed Glen to build from the back. Like their spread, Glen's the one team in Ireland who had a serious spread of scores. They don't rely on their 6-4s just scoring. They have a spread of scores from all over the team. But if you think like Emmett Bradley had a massive game for them, McFall had a massive game. To be fair, Ethan Doherty had a big last 15 minutes when they needed him. He was in and out of the game. But it's just like Kilmacud, I think, will regret the not pressing the kick outs. Like it was a big blow. And then when they started pressing, they started getting hands on ball. To be fair, Dice and them started breaking around it. But look, that 20-minute tournament was a big turning point for Kilmacud. But look, to be fair, I do think Ryan Duggan gone off allowed Mannion into the game. Yeah, but it was a wonderful lot. Like we talked about not seeing, but I know, like I thought you were delighted you were there. Everybody was talking about the conditions and stuff. But I don't think I think there was 15,000 people there. There wasn't one of them 15,000 people walked out through that gate and went, "No, I wish I wasn't there." I thought it was a great advertisement for club football, the atmosphere and even the build up going to it. It was brilliant just for club football.
Yeah, I was actually at the game myself, and I was actually standing beside Jody Gormley, who managed Thurlough this year. Like, and and we were just chatting about Daniel. We've had this conversation as well about how the club game, I think personally, is nearly surpassing the intercounty game now. With enjoyment and obviously the involvement as well of you look at the coaches that were involved there today, the likes of Robbie Brennan, Malachi O'Rourke, Ryan Porter, Peter Donnelly from the Scottstown, Kevin O'Brien, David McCaig, like real good quality coaches. Like, and you're sort of looking at the county game now, maybe a bit sterile. You're sort of thinking there's maybe 26, 27 counties that are possibly wasting their time. Like, but Mark talked about Daniel, the Glen spread of scores, 10 different scores. And it was nearly like as Michael Warnock's performance on Shane Walsh today. Like Shane Walsh finished with 1-2, one free kick. The goal, which you can't really sort of, blame Warnock for, it was just a long ball into the square as an accident, but he got one score from play, which was a phenomenal score from the edge of the 45 that you sort of take your hats off. But Warnock was outstanding, but certainly Glen's spread of scores, Daniel, probably just edged that over Kilmacud's reliance on Mannion and Walsh. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And when we kind of built it up, I think in the last podcast we were talking about just having two of probably the top 10 forwards in your team, and sometimes it's very hard not to rely on those sort of lads. Do you know what I mean? And like even in the first half, Walsh had a couple of poorish wides, Mannion had a couple of wides. A different day, maybe they pop over and it looks different. But to be fair to Glen, I thought how they moved the ball, how they like Crokes got numbers back fairly regularly, and as there was times where it was kind of stagnant enough pieces of play, but there was one little movement. I think it was the time Emmett, or it was the time the red card. Sorry for Sheehy. Well, it should have been a red card in my opinion on that. And there was a lovely little backdoor cut, I think it was by Jack Doherty, and it was just a lovely succinct piece of movement that was able to chop down kind of a fairly heavy blanket from Crokes, and that kind of that sort of creativity I thought was really nice in patches from Glen. Whereas I think Crokes overdo the slow build up sometimes, and there's times where maybe a quick transition might be on where they'll take the I won't say the safer option, but they'll take the kind of that's a slower, more methodical approach. And again, that probably works against 99% of teams. But I thought the two matchups were fascinating. I thought Dugan and Mannion was a really, really good contest, and Dugan came out on top of it, to be fair to him. Warnock and Walsh, Walsh looked like he could have done something. It looked like maybe there was a couple of times in the first half he stepped off his right foot and went to go, and you're thinking, oh, this could be on, but nothing really came of it. But it was I thought it was just a top quality battle, and comparing the comparing the two games, I watched both of them on TV. That looked like top level inter-county game. The way both teams were coached, the way they were going about their business, in comparison to the first game, which is a little bit more. I know we'll talk about it later, but it was a little bit more what you'd associate as a club game. That sort of way. There's a bit of naivety and a bit of innocence. But these two teams, and you have to give credit to Crokes today as well, to be fair to them. There may be in years gone by, a good few years ago, they could have been thrown at them. They were a little bit wishy-washy and mightn't have fancied the battle. But to come back from where they were, I thought showed a real bit of determination. And I think there was an interesting coaching point in the kickouts, because when they went after them, they 100% got value off that. But also Glen got two glorious goal chances that they probably should have finished. So it's really interesting how far do you go with your system? And I don't think Crokes changed a whole lot from what they've done all year until it was probably too late. They probably needed to flick that switch at half time, maybe, I think, and go after a little bit more. But it's that's the roulette of the kick-out sometimes now. So
yeah, I went to watch them last week, boys, against the Queens. They were playing Queens University in a challenge match, lads, in Park Eshler, right? And obviously it was a run out because the week before Glen had played Cullyhanna in a challenge game. So obviously the Down County board had facilitated both teams, to play in the field. No one was getting an advantage, right? Newry is quite a tighter field, right? It's not overly tight, Mark, but it's a tighter field, right, than Croker. It doesn't have the open space Croker. This time last year, Kilmacud, I think, played 6-7 games in Croke Park. This year they've been out of Croke Park and they've looked vulnerable on certain occasions. They looked vulnerable in RD, Daniel, against St Mary's. They certainly looked vulnerable today. They were beaten today. And is it a case, even from a county perspective? I know I'm sort of going off track a wee bit, but I'd love to know your opinion on this, Mark, even from Dublin's point of view. Wouldn't it be fantastic to see Dublin playing a championship game in Park Eshler against, a Tyrone or Donegal or something like that in the new format of the county season? I just think it would just change the dynamics of the game. It's not as a great leveler, but I just think you talked about the occasion, sense of occasion. Newry, packed house today. You could feel the atmosphere, you could feel the tension around the place, in comparison to, imagine that game was in Croker today, only with 15,000 people. How empty it would be, how soulless it would be, That's my
opinion. Well, funny enough, I couldn't agree with you more about the County Dublin coming out. And actually, I remember being at the Kilmacud and Lane game last year in Croke Park, and it was, the atmosphere wasn't even a quarter of the atmosphere as it was the other day. It just felt the tension you could feel, even even along both lanes, side lanes, benches, and that you could feel the tension along the lane and the crowd. When you're in Croke Park, you didn't feel that. There's nowhere near that same atmosphere. But no, look, make no mistakes, Glen would have been delighted to play Kilmacud and Park Eshler the day. Look, you asked them, do you want to let them run after Shane Walsh and Paul Mannion and them boys in Croke Park, or either are tighter space in Newry? And it plays tighter, with the crowd in close to the sidelines and stuff, and it does play tighter, look, to be fair. But look, Glen still deserved their win. But look, that's a good point you made, I think, is get to the point. You'd love to see the Dubs in the road, just like it was good to see Kilmacud being took out Croke Park. And last year, they do have a serious advantage. I think they played semi-final of Leinster, final of Leinster, first round, second round of all. Massive difference. They played in the large semi-final last year in Croke Park in the final. Yeah. So look, it does make, even surroundings, changing rooms, everything, just being used to it. Where today they were coming into Park Eshler, them and Glen 50-50. Look, and to be fair, look, it did suit Glen. And the way Glen defend, Glen are really, really good at getting bodies back, and they do, they nearly go like a Nara 1v1. They don't allow, very rarely you'll see a Glen man caught 1v1 and around the D or backdoor cuts. They're that well compact and tight, whereas in a bigger pitch in Croke Park, it is very, very hard to mark that space, where Newry it just wasn't as much. But look, take nothing away. The Glen, I still think Kilmacud were the Orcas their own downfall in the fort. They went 2-0 up, and then just to give Glen the kick out and allowed their, I keep repeating it, but Glen's the one team who builds scores so easily from the back. And look, I do think Kilmacud, when they analyse it tomorrow or Tuesday, I think maybe that was a mistake, because when it did go out at Dias and these boys started breaking ball and they'll started winning breaks. Now, to be fair, Daniel made a good point. When the press was in, Glen did score. When the game went to draw and Kilmacud had aggressive press, last flicked it on. They were able to still get the couple of wee scores they needed, to be fair. But I do think Glen probably should have been out of sight. Probably shouldn't have allowed the game to go back the way it was. But definitely, I know when it went to draw, I know you said you didn't feel Glen were going to get beat, but I did think when it went to draw, now's a real test of character. And before the last nick ball kicked out, punched it. But even if you think, it just shows when the pressure comes on, or Conor and Flanagan and Glen goals. Remember, they got back that point again. Everybody thought when Ethan Doherty the ball in the net, game over, up the field. Shane Walsh checks the ball in the net, and next time Glen goal, Colin Bradley's kick out, it goes straight out over the line.
Yeah, that's right.
And they got away from it. They got away with it. They
was
really
kicked away just straight after.
Yes, they got away with they did get away with that there. But look, sometimes you make your own luck, and probably Glen thought that they were a wee bit of luck went against them last year. Yeah, and they got the wee bit rub of the green. Yep.
Daniel, just before I bring Turlough in, just one wee thing there I noticed today, like against Queens a couple of weeks ago in a challenge match, I noticed Kilmacud trying to sort of play this stacked attack where they're pushing 8-9 bodies in, and they did it a couple of times today. But actually in the first half they were turned over for overcarrying or touched on the ground on the edge of the D, and there was a counter attack where Ethan Doherty played the ball in. I think it was to Jack Doherty actually, who ended up picking it off the ground. But the Kilmacud goalkeeper at this stage was actually on his own 45, chasing back. They were caught very, very badly. The same thing happened in the second half as well for the Ewan Mulholland goal chance. It was 11-5, massive goal chance, 3v2 opportunity. If you watch that back, it's in around about the 42nd minute, and they didn't take it. But see that sort of tactic, Daniel, of pushing those bodies forward, it certainly leaves you very, very vulnerable at the back, unless, as Mark says, you're really competent on the ball like Glen.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not something you'd want to be only trying maybe 2 weeks before you're playing a game like this. You know, it'd want to be something you're drilling and training time after time, and it's your anchors at the back. Your quarterbacks are going to be very secure on ball and very good ball players to be confident enough that if they're the last man, that they're able to retain possession, because it does, while it does drag your defensive zone out of shape, and you have to follow 5-6 men into the full forward line, it does leave you really exposed. And especially with conditions like they are today, as you said, maybe different story. Summer football, it's a lot harder to win turnovers with dry ball, and it's on a good sod. But with a game like today, you've got to slip, you've got to you've got to mishandle, something small like that could happen. You've got a Conor Lane that could come into the equation as well. So look, it is high risk. I still think it's the best way of probably breaking down that kind of zonal defense is to flood numbers inside, because I know from a defender's point of view, it just throws you off straight away. And if you're dragging your +1 back into the full back line, you might be dragging the midfielder back into the full back line where they don't want to be. That does create consternation. But again, it's like the roulette with the kickouts. If it goes wrong, you could easily get caught out. And in fairness, that Ewan Mulholland opportunity, that should have been a goal, you know, and that could have been a cover, you know.
Yeah, and Turlough, good to see you in there, Turlough. But I know you were in Semple Stadium today. Well, obviously, we'll chat about that obviously in a few minutes. But from your perspective of the Kilmacud game, you came up against them this year, obviously in the Leinster Club Championship. So you've analysed them, you know them, at first hand. Like, but there's so much expected, Turlough, of Shane Walsh and Mannion, you know, and like today they were really, really well marshalled today. Like, you know, Ryan Dugan, I thought for 40 minutes was outstanding on Mannion until he had to go off injured. I thought Michael Warnock was outstanding on Shane Walsh. Like, the matchups were absolutely perfect. But, you know, Shane Horn had a solid game, Turlough. You know, David Higgins and goals didn't do an awful lot wrong. I thought Craig Dias had a real positive game in around the middle of the field. But is there too much expectation or too much expected of those two men? What's your thoughts like?
Well, I don't think Kilmacud expect too much of the two men, to be honest with you. I think that's a perception maybe in you know, in the media, maybe among the general population, that these two guys are leading this Kilmacud team to glory. Like, but when I see, you know, performances of Walsh and Mannion this year with Kilmacud, they've actually had quite enough games at times during the championship. I mean, for instance, against their Ogue, you know, Shane Walsh scored 1-2, a point in the 45, and the goal was in injury time. Phenomenal finish, but very, very lucky to get the break. The ball hit his head and bounced forward, and he volleyed back at net. Like Mannion, the same. He didn't score a whole lot against us either. It was the other players who did all the damage in the early rounds of the championship for Kilmacud, as far as I could see. You know, Darren Mullen, these lads, O'Connor, they were very, very effective. So I don't think that's the case, that all their eggs are in one basket or two baskets, if you like. But I do think that there might be a slight arrogance in how they're setting up the play, in that, you know, if I didn't see the game today because I was coming back from Turlough, I was listening to the radio, and I couldn't see the television anyway with the fog. But, you know, giving up the kickouts against the Glen is crazy stuff, in my opinion. They did the same against their Ogue. We weren't expecting it, and it threw us, to be honest with you. We were expecting to come really, really heavy in the kickouts, and I think we could have been a lot closer if we had planned for that, you know. So I think there might have been a little bit of arrogance about that, to do that against Glen, a team like Glen, giving possession of the ball so easily. So look, a very hard game to analyse, obviously, with the fog. I only saw it on television now, and look, Kilmacud nearly stole it in the end, to be fair to them, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
look, it's set up now for Glen to win that title.
Tactically, lads, I felt tactically, Tony, I know you said you were close to the dugout. I actually stood right beside the pitch, as in like sideline level, at the fence, because it was probably the only place you could possibly see the majority of the pitch. But the communication levels on the field from the players was outstanding. You know, you can see two sets of players, lads, who are supremely coached. Just what Turlough talked about, giving up the kickouts before the Glen goalie had the ball down, lads. There was a call from McFall saying they're giving it up, get up the field. And Glen were nearly pushing up the set into their structured attack, Daniel, straight away. While, you know, the way most teams would take the short kick out, come out slow and laborious, Glen were bang, 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 straight up. They're ready up the field. They're ready set up. And it just gives Kilmacud so much more to think about. And another tactical niche as well, which obviously was very evident. When Glen got that winning score mark from the free kick, which looked like the winning score to put them 14-13 up, they pressed so aggressively and stayed with their press. And it was Conor Glass who turned the ball over for Ethan Doherty just to obviously soccer style it into the empty net. And it just felt then they dropped off the next kick out and give Kilmacud the opportunity to attack. And I was sort of thinking to myself, like, what they did, it was so brave in the 63rd, 62nd minute, the press after going a point up, whereas most teams, man, would actually drop off at that stage, Daniel, you know. And I'm just thinking, Mark, like, from a tactical point of view, like, you know, surely that's a massive you know, facet of the game that most teams should be thinking about now, when late in the game, opportunity to press, go after, you know, and put the pressure on, pressure creating panic.
Yeah, well, I don't understand teams that don't. I remember, I'm varying away. I remember last year's Ulster final, Armagh through level with Derry, and you're thinking, go and press the next kick out, and they just give them the ball, and they revert back. But yes, look, to be fair, that last, there's one thing you talk about leadership, like you hear McFall and Conor Glass and these boys today, and it's just, they know exactly every kick out. They're talking about what they're doing, but you can see when they went after Conor McLaughlin got 1-3, and to be fair, Conor McLaughlin was as cute as a fox. He beat his man, and you could see him looking behind. He knew the defender was going to put a hand in. And the minute the defender went to put the hand in, Conlon just dived, walked across him, and look, he took his ground. Well, it was a handy free, but yes, the aggressive press, the next thing, and they got the goal. But then you're thinking, right, we're going to let aggressive press. They're 4 up, and they probably thought, look, we've won the game. Let's go back and sit back. Whereas maybe if they had a press the next one again, the ball might have been a lot more. Look, it's always easy after, but the one thing about Glen was when they do, there's one thing Glen are really, really good at. The two things they're really, really good at. They're really good at building scores from the back, but they're also, when they go on one of them aggressive presses, like a 4-4-5, they flood 4 inside, they put 4 across the middle, and they bring 5 across. And their back line of 5 is usually with big men, Glass, and Bradley. Now, I know Dougie was off at the time, but that's usually a McFall and then Conlon. So they do flood big men in and down the back, but look, it was a real risk and reward, and they scored a goal from it, and it was like it's a point down. Because they pressed heavy in the kick out, they were able to get a goal. But look, Kilmacud probably mucked about a wee bit much with it too. And as you said, Connor's last forced a 10 over, and Ethan Doherty will never score an easier goal ever.
You know, and Daniel, that you know, obviously pressing, like, you're a manager yourself, like, you go a point up, like, so late in the game, the temptation is, look, just drop to the middle and let them have it. And it's actually inviting the opposition on. It's actually a great lesson for a lot of coaches there today, you know, what way Glen approached those last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember the down game in the league in 2019, was it? And we just went level, and the question was, we numbers up, and do you stay up or do you drop? And we dropped. And I suppose, look, as Mark said, kind of revisionism was always the right answer. So if we had turned them over around the middle of the field, the right thing was to drop. And if you can see the score, is the wrong thing. But it is interesting though, like, and you're just as you were saying about that back line of 5, Mark, with Glen, like, I mean, a lot of it is to what it's suitable to what individuals you have. So Glen are very lucky that they have 5 monsters, a monster fullback, McFall centre back. They have 2 midfielders that are huge. They can put a massive line of 5 across there. 5 minutes.
You think, Daniel, you've 13 men. They're putting 13 men inside 65 yards too. Like they know if they catch it or break the ball down, the body. The only thing is, if you can get over that press, you're away. But look, there's not too many teams get over it.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the. I think what teams are doing now at the moment, which is, as Davey mentioned, you're picking and choosing your moments. It's brilliant, like that. You have that, as you said, the roulette or the kick out. Like, you know, it's literally one break one way, it could be a goal one side, one break the other way, it could be a goal back to far side. You know, so it's I think sometimes teams you get a sense for what's happening in the game as well. You get a feel for the flow, the energy, where it is, like, you know, and I think it's that comes to your on-field leaders. We talked about Conor last before. We talked about these lads who can sense what way the game is going at a given time, because it's very hard to get messages at that point in the game, you know.
Yeah,
danger though is, I think, if you drop off, you know, when you go that point ahead, a few minutes to go, a minute ago, 2 minutes to go, the referees are inclined to play with the team behind.
Correct.
You know, to level it up, like, you know, so there's a huge risk, I think, by dropping off. I think,
Turlough, you were involved in that game actually with myself that day, and I remember it very clearly what Daniel's talking about there, because Kevin McKiernan actually picked up a red card, Daniel, in that move, and Damon Walsh kicked the ball over the bar to make it 14-all, and we were 6 minutes over on the clock, and there was a sort of a call: will we press or will we not? And we decided not to press, thinking that the goalie would kick the ball out and the game would be over, you know, but he allowed for another minute. And you're sort of thinking, you're a man up. It probably, in hindsight, it probably was the wrong call, you know, to drop off the kick out, you know. But Turlough, don't forget, St Ledger made that on-field call. We didn't have any say in that call.
Absolutely. You know, in fairness to you, like, you as coach, like, I mean, you're the first coach in GA to play the offside rule the whole time.
Tell me this, Turlough. Coaching, it's evolved so much, hasn't it? Like, we're talking about a club game here where, like, the tactical innovations we're seeing there today, you know, and the learning from it, like, as I was saying to the boys, is second to none, isn't it? Really, like, it's such a high level of coaching now, even at the club.
Yeah, I think, yeah, despite the, you know, the criticism of the game, that there is a huge change happening at the moment. I think that we're going to a more offensive style of football, and teams are looking at more width and height and movement, and positions mean nothing. You know, I mean, you see a team line up at the start of the game, and 2 minutes later, who's playing where? It's very hard to follow. But so there's an awful lot of innovation going on, and I think the game is going to come into a really, really good spell in the next year or two, as more teams get into the mindset of, look at, you know, blanket defenses, you know, they only get you so far. You got to put the scores on the board, and I think it's starting to seep down into the club game. You can see it now at this level. Obviously, all in clubs in the final stage, you're going to see it. Bridges are phenomenal. I think they're going to put a really good test onto Glen. So that's. I think it's fascinating. And it is changing, and I think it's going to be for the better.
Well, that's what I want to come to, Turlough. You were in Semple Stadium today. You were at the St Brigids game against Castlehaven. St Brigids very like Glen, 7 different scores. Castlehaven very reliant on Brian Hurley. Obviously, he got 7 of their 10 points. I have to mention this straight out to you, like, because I texted Anthony Cunningham. He was on the TV a few times. I've seen more of him than I did of the match in TG Car, but I texted him and I said to him, Ben O'Carroll, what a talent, like, and he is a special player, boy. He is a special player. I thought he was outstanding today.
He was outstanding in the first half.
Yeah, second half. Well, it was a Jekyll Hyde performance. 17 minutes, Turlough, in the second half. St Brigids didn't score for 17 minutes.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, it was a Jekyll Hyde performance. Go back to what we spoke about earlier, you know, about Newry and the tight, compact ground, and the spectators being close to the pitch. You're in Turlough today. I think there was
complete opposite.
3,500 people in it, and no atmosphere. It's just the wrong place for these games. We need smaller provincial venues for the club championship games. Fill them, have an atmosphere, have the crowd on your back, have them create the atmosphere, having them putting pressure on the team and encouraging another team, you know. And I just think we lose out as a result of playing in front of, you know, empty stands, you know, on the television. It doesn't look well. So I think they really need to go back to looking at the venues for these things. But to go back to the match itself, Castlehaven were very one-dimensional. It was really about getting the ball to Hurley. They were too slow, too pedantic. didn't have many ideas, in my opinion. Didn't have any idea about how to use space. Absolutely clueless about it, to be honest with you. Whereas on the other side, I thought British were immense in the first half. Jesus, that's fantastic football. Absolutely fantastic football. From 1 to 15, the way they move the ball, they're moving themselves. You know, the diagonal runs, you know, men taking on men, going for the second ball. All of that was in their game, like, you know, and you know, it wasn't just Ben O'Carroll. All those forwards were live wires there today, like, you know. But second half, then, was like a switch. They didn't really switch on at all in the second half. They kicked 5, 6 wides in a row.
And why was that, Turlough? Why was that, do you think?
Two things strike me. One was that the far side of the pitch, which you wouldn't see on the TV cameras, was frosted. So maybe the play wasn't on that wing as much. And on the other side, you were kicking into that very, very strong sun. It was really, really strong and bright there today. Hard to believe the contrast between the two games. And I know Brian Hurley's first free, for instance, was into the sun from the wrong side for him as a right-footed kicker, and he kicked it wide. You know, he actually had a few poor wides today from frees or shorts. A lot of ball drops short. Haven would be very disappointed, I'd say, with the return from their attacks. You know, I mean, an awful lot of ball dropped short for them today. But for me, Brigids are a real, genuine contender for the final. I believe that if the team that turned up the first half turns up for the All-Ireland final, it's going to be a cracking game.
I agree with you, Turlough, and I think Croke Park will suit their style of football. They kicked the ball quite a bit in the first half. They used the foot pass quite a bit. You know, I thought in thinking the first half, you know, they scored. I think it was 1-7 they got in the first half.
1-7-6, yeah.
1-7-6, and I think Ben O'Carroll was involved in 1-7, either as assist or a scorer. You know, and every score he was sensational. Like, he's obviously been a big asset for Davy Burke and Roscommon too. But Daniel, you watched the game as well. Obviously, Castlehaven did have goal chances. Daniel, they really did, especially in the first half too. They hit the crossbar, and then another great chance just before half time from Hurley as well. But very reliant on Hurley, I think.
Yeah, I partly agree with Turlough's overall analysis. Just coming back to the venue, probably added to it didn't feel like championship pitch. It felt a little bit, as I was saying to you earlier, it felt like a traditional club game with mistakes and a bit of naivety, whereas the game up in Newry felt really hot and heavy. And I'd say that could have actually been something to do with the ground as well. I would say. I thought Brigids were the better team, but two shots off the crossbar. Hurley misses 2 21-yard frees. Mark Collins dropped one short, missed a couple of 45s. Like that, it could have Castlehaven could have easily won it at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? And we were talking about being over reliant on forwards. Like, Glen will snuff out Ben O'Carroll, as good a footballer as he is. They will snuff him out on his own. There is going to need to be a bit of a supporting cast there. But it was, I actually really enjoyed it as a game of football. I thought it was, the mistakes made it very enjoyable. It was kind of up and down a little bit, and you probably didn't really know what was going to happen at a given time. But Castlehaven were overly reliant on Brian Hurley. Michael Hurley played very deep, and there was no link. But it seemed like Brian Hurley was 50, 60 yards away from the attack, and there was no link in between the two. I thought that Brian Stack and Brian Hurley was a brilliant battle, actually. I thought Brian Stack... Sorry, go on, Turlough.
The yellow card that was very, very unfair. I mean, that was a challenge. 50-50 challenge. No way was it a free even. And he gets a yellow card for it, you know, so it might have impeded him afterwards. But the defending of Brigids is very good, lads. One-on-one defenders are very, very good. I give him a real chance, to be honest with you. Give him a real chance.
Mark, I had Eddie coached Eddie for one season there. Actually, he's a great footballer. Eddie Nolan in the middle of the field. I would say he'll probably match up maybe on Conor Glass in the final. Eddie's a real competitor. I know that day that he played against Dublin in the National League, he picked up Fenton and did a real good job. And I'm like, so, you know, I'd say he'll probably obviously match up on Glass. Do you think obviously Warnock will pick up Ben O'Carroll? That would be an automatic, would it? Do you think?
Yeah, or don't look at the plans. Warnock probably, or Dougie. Look, to be fair, Ryan Dugan has picked up. I know in the Derry Championship this year, Neely picked up Shane McGuigan for a while. He is their go-to man between one of the two. Between it'll be Dougie or Spike, so it'll be one of them two boys. And look, I think it was Daniel mentioned, or St Brigids are going to need the supporting cast to be well supported. But look, I would give St Brigids a big chance simply because I think you actually said it. At Croke Park will suit them, big wide open space. They're a running team and they're very young. I read somewhere maybe there's 12 or 13 of them, all 24 and under. So they're a very young squad. Now, a lot will depend on as I said, Glen's injuries, Ryan Dugan and Jack Doherty, it'll just be big question marks over that. Look, you should have been Connor last, but I think, look, Emma Bradley has been exceptional this year in the Derry Club Championship, and I was just sitting there for Glen in the Derry Club Championship and in the Ulster and in the day, and I was sitting thinking, how big of addition would he have been for Derry today again, or he had been available for Derry again, Cherry in the All-Ireland semi-final, bringing him in with it, because he would have been a massive, and I think, I could be wrong here, but I think I did this conversation with a couple of Slotneil boys a few weeks ago, that at the time he was away on his honeymoon, and then when he wanted when I think Gallagher wanted him back in, he had only home and he wasn't that keen in coming back in, wanted a couple of weeks break, and then when he wanted to come back in, I think it was a few weeks before the Ulster final, Gallagher didn't want him back in because he didn't come in when he was supposed to come in. So look, he would have been a massive addition for Derry, because you see him there today, he would up and fetch 2 or 3 scores, and look, it's still the most important player in the field. Is still that way. He can kick the ball over from 30 or 40 yards, and he kicked 2 or 3 monster points today. And look, he would have been a big thing. And when you think of Glen's midfield, Connor Glass and Emma Bradley, it's a core platform.
Yeah. I actually said that to you today, Ledge, in a text message. Like, Emmett Bradley, like he's a beast of a man.
And Mark makes a good point there about midfielders. Very hard to match up with midfielders consistently. You can match up in a corner forward and suffocate them, but midfielders can come late onto the play, and when you have a boot that's accurate from 40+ meters, like that's a massive advantage as well. That'll be a good battle actually, because Rory Maguire and Eddie went at it fairly hammer and tongs today as well. They had a good matchup, so that'll be an interesting battle. I'd say it could be a really, really good game of football. I'd say
it could be. And Turlough, Daniel mentioned Rory Maguire. Like, there was a big moment, Turlough, 43rd minute. It was 8-1-7. St Brigids hadn't scored, obviously, for the first 12 minutes of the half. Didn't score for the first 17, obviously, in the second half. But Hurley slipped in Rory Maguire, 1-on-1 with the keeper. It was probably easier to score, and he smashed the underside of the crossbar. Like, you talk about moments in games, Turlough, like moments decide big games, don't they? Like,
absolutely, yeah. No, definitely had their chances, all right. Like, but having said that, though, I just thought that Brigids were completely in control for most of that game. Even in the second half, when they weren't as effective. They never looked to be in danger, to be honest with you. I just think they have size as well, the physicality that will be able to match Glen in the final. That middle third, they're big men, and they play a physical game at the back. Forward movement is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, lads. If they're on song, I give them a great chance, but their second half performance was disappointing. I couldn't believe it, to be honest with you. I said at halftime, Castlehaven got 2 points just before halftime to give himself a chance in the second half. And in fairness, they took it. They slowly whittled down the lead, but they closed out in the end. But it was, I suppose, a little bit shaky towards the end. That they had to hang in a little bit, but they were certainly the better team, no question of it. And no, they have size and physique, lads. I think it'll be a good battle in midfield between the four boys. Conan got taken off there today towards the end, but 2 big mobile midfielders for them, and the space in Croke Park will suit them.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm looking forward to it, lads. Looking forward to it. Just probably quickly to finish off, man. Obviously we'll get together maybe after the final and have a chat about it. But final, Mark, quickly, what's your views quickly?
Look, Glen just about, but it would take. They're going to need Ryan Dugan and Jack Doherty. If them two's not playing, maybe advantage St Brigids, because the two of them, especially Dougie's a massive player for Glen, but Glen's at full strength. Glen just about.
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I probably agree with Mark there. The injuries will be significant one way or the other, but I'd say Glen if full back.
Turlough, you've had a wee soft spot for Brigids all year. You've been to see them 3 or 4 times. You really, really like the look of them, don't you?
I do, yeah. I think if they play like they did the first half, they have every chance. Play like the second half, no chance. That's the reality of it, So that was probably the worst 30 minutes football I've seen them play this year. It was the second half today. But game conditions today were slightly different than normal.
It's interesting too, the maturity of that group too, lads. The Glen group, like there was no mad celebrating there today. Like there was no mad celebrating, Daniel. You normally sort of see a team celebrating, you're thinking, but there was no mad celebrating there.
It was a weird finish actually. When the goal went in, it was a bit surreal because no one could see if it was in or not on TV, and everyone was the commentary was a little bit behind. And then when Walsh had the chance, we assumed there was another play, and Lane blew it up. Second, it was kick out. So it was early, You know, but
circumstances. I think the circumstances in which Glen were beaten in last year, I think, and I just think that they're bit between their teeth. I think they really, really want this, you know, and obviously Bridges too. 10 years ago, Turlough, I think Bridges won the All Ireland 2013. 2013. Yeah, so you know, there's a bit of tradition there too as well. No, lads, listen, thanks very much. Great insight, and it'll be an interesting final. Croke Park as well. Both teams like to play good football, so please God, it'll be a good game. But listen, lads, thanks very much, and I think it was worth noting as well that a couple of big wins this weekend. I see London beat Mayo in the FD and Connacht. Huge win. I know, Mark, your own brother played for London for a number of years, right, Connor?
Yeah, he played for them. Look, it was good to be fair, and there's actually another Longstone man involved. And Gareth McDowell, I think, was in the bench. So
very good.
It was good to see. Look, and to be fair, London's doing serious work now. So look, I think if they're looking manager or coach, me and you could maybe take that up next year. We be two poor boys in London. I'm a fear of flying, so Ledger's your man there. He's your man there. I'm thinking of the night.
I tell you, Turlough will tell you, whenever I get the fucking National League and Championship, I was driving the kit van over Turlough. Do you remember
that? You did indeed. In fairness to you, you did.
Drove over twice, but the journey over was good. The journey home wasn't so good.
Lads, it wasn't the only big win in the group, was it?
Where is that?
It wasn't the only big win in the group.
Oh, sorry, Mark had a big win.
Turlough didn't get a comment on the
They got a big win against Turlough at the weekend.
I thought you were going to say Jimmy's back winning matches.
Wicklow got the big win over Turlough at the weekend. That's Wicklow now installed.
Hey, the big win over the weekend. The big win over the weekend was Airog winning the under-20 final against Palatine in a replay.
I would have
stop the recording. Stop the recording.
Wicklow will be in there now in front of Kildare and Meath, the second favourites for Leinster now, I'd say. And just
rugby.
Lads, thanks a million, lads. Take care.
All right, lads. Bye.